Welcome back to Miss Burkhart's math class. Make sure you have your notes in front of you, something to write with so you can fill in your notes as you watch the video. And remember to pause the video when you need to fill in your notes to catch up. And make sure you're going back and re-watching any parts to make sure you really understand the information. So today we are going to continue talking about Standard 6.5a, multiplying and dividing fractions and mixed numbers. Specifically in today's lesson, you will learn how to divide fractions using the algorithm. So let's get started. Before we jump into learning the algorithm for dividing fractions, we need to start with some vocabulary. So let's look at our vocabulary word, reciprocal. The reciprocal, the way we find the reciprocal of a fraction, kind of a fun word, wouldn't you agree? Yeah, to find the reciprocal of a fraction, we need to switch the numerator and the denominator. So in order to find the reciprocal of a fraction, we switch, just simply flip the numerator and denominator. So let's look at the first one, 1/4. The reciprocal of 1/4, I'm truly just going to switch the numerator and denominator, and it's going to become 4/1. That's it. So the reciprocal of 1/4 is 4/1, and vice versa. The reciprocal of 4/1 is 1/4. Now you try and write the reciprocal of 3/5 on your paper. Go ahead and do that. What did you get? You get 5/3, right? We just simply switch, or you can think of it as flipping the numerator and denominator. Now, what about 6, a whole number, any whole number? How am I going to find the reciprocal of 6? Give it a try. See if you remember. So, did you remember what is a whole number? How do I write a whole number in fraction form? Did you remember you put the 1 in the denominator? So if that's what it would be, now I just need to switch it to find the reciprocal, would then be 1/6. How'd you do? If you need to, make corrections. And then if you forgot to make a whole number into its fraction form, putting it 1 in the denominator, make a little note to yourself on your paper to remind yourself. So now that we know that vocabulary, here is how you divide fractions using the algorithm. So to divide fractions is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal, there's our vocabulary word, of the second fraction. So the key point here, never change the first fraction. Again, dividing fractions is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So let's see why that is. To show you why this works and why that algorithm is, why it works, let's start with what we have done, we just finished doing, which was using models to figure out the division problem. So here I have 3 divided by 1/2. So I have 3 wholes, starting with that. Remember, in division, you always start with your total. And it says I want to divide those 3, let's call them whole cakes, into groups of 1/2. So maybe I'm giving a half of each cake to my friends. So how many friends would get a half of a cake? So we're going to divide each of the 3 whole cakes into half. And how many groups of 1/2 do I have? Here's one group, and another group, another half, and another half, another half, and another half. So how many groups of 1/2 are there? 6. Now I want you to take a look at this equation and the picture as well. Do the numbers kind of look like, do they remind you of a multiplication problem with similar numbers? Did you say it looks kind of similar to 3 times 2, which is also 6, right? Notice what's the difference between 1/2 and 2. Just to give you a little hint, remember to make a whole number a fraction, you put the 1 in the denominator 1/2 and 2 over 1. Notice those are, what's the vocabulary word? Reciprocals. Right. So now let's see. Let's take a look at our picture here to see why is it the same as 3 times 2? Well, look, remember 3 times 2 means 3 groups of 2, right? Don't we have here 3 groups of 2? Here's one group of 2 pieces. Here's another group of 2 pieces and a third group of 2 pieces, giving us a total of 6 pieces. So this is just to kind of explain that this algorithm didn't just come out of the sky. It really does have an explanation behind it. Remember that dividing fractions is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of the second fraction. Never change the first fraction. Now let's put that into practice. Let's try a few. So the first one here we have is 2/3 divided by 1/5. We're going to rewrite it. Make sure you're rewriting it below the problem. Remember, do I change the first number? Nope, never change the first number. So we keep 2/3. Now we're going to change it because remember, division is the same as multiplying by. Now, is it going to be multiplying by the same as 1/5? No, I can't just change division to multiplication and keep the numbers the same. That wouldn't make sense. That wouldn't be equivalent. So we're going to multiply it by the what? Reciprocal of this second fraction. So what is the reciprocal of 1 over 5? We just flip the numbers around and we get 5 over 1. Now it's just a regular multiplication fraction problem. And remember how we do that? Just multiply the numerators. What's 2 times 5? 10. And now we just multiply the denominators. What's 3 times 1? 3. So our answer is 10/3. So 2/3 divided by 1/5 is 10/3. Same thing. Now you try this second one. Pause the video and I want you to try this one, rewrite it below in the multiplication equation, and then press play and the quiz question will pop up. Let's see how you did. So again, 3/5, we're going to rewrite it using the algorithm, which tells us that we keep the first number, and then it's the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of the second number, which makes it 4 over 3. 4 over 3 is the same as 3/4. I'm sorry, not the same as, is the reciprocal of. And now we just multiply the fraction. 3 times 4 is 12. And 5 times 3 is 15. Now, I'm noticing here, hopefully you noticed it too, I can simplify this fraction. In other words, there is a common number, common factor, I can divide 12 and 15 by. Do you know what it is? 3. So I can divide both of them by 3. What is 12 divided by 3? 4. And what is 15 divided by 3? 5. So that is your simplified answer to this problem. So 3/5 divided by 3/4 is equal to 4/5. Make sure if you need to, make any corrections on your paper so that you know you have them correctly written in your notes. Now, try this one. A little tricky because we have a whole number here. So remember, how am I going to find the reciprocal of this whole number? If you need to, pause the video and go back to look at your notes that we had in the beginning as to how we made the reciprocal of a whole number. So pause the video, solve this problem, and then come back on. Let's check your work. So did you remember how we're going to make 4 into its reciprocal? Hopefully you remembered that to make 4 into its fraction form, I just put 1 underneath it into the denominator. So now let's rewrite the equation into a multiplication problem. Keep the first number, change it to multiplication, and now I'm going to multiply it by the reciprocal of the second number, which then becomes what? 1/4. So the reciprocal of 4, or 4 over 1, is 1/4. How'd you do? Now we're just going to multiply. 1 times 1 is 1. and 2 times 4 is 8. There's your answer. So 1/2 divided by 4 is equal to 1/8. Now, mixed numbers. Just like when we were multiplying mixed numbers, do you remember the first thing you had to do? Hopefully you're saying you had to change the mixed number into an improper fraction. You had to do that first. So whether you have 2 mixed numbers or you have 1 mixed number and then a proper fraction, the first thing you have to do, you have an extra step when you have mixed numbers in your problem. You're going to have to change those first, then rewrite it as its multiplication problem. So let's change these first. 1 and 1/2. I know that the improper fraction, this will also be halves. And then the second fraction, the denominator will be thirds, because remember, the denominators stay the same when you're making it improper. Now, whether you draw the pictures to figure this out or you use the little shortcut, doesn't matter. So we'll just do the little shortcut. Remember, we said 2 times 1, right, is 2. And then we're going to add that extra 1 there. So that gives us 3. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. So 1 and 1/2 is equivalent to 3 halves, right? Or think 1 whole has 2 halves in it, plus this extra half makes 3 halves. Now let's change 1 and 2/3. So again, we're going to say 3 times 1 is 3. And then we're going to add the extra 2. That gives us 3 times 1 is 3. Plus 2 makes 5. So 1 and 2/3 is equivalent to 5/3. Keep this as division. We have not done anything except change it to improper fractions. You must take this extra step or you're going to get confused and mix something up. Now we're going to rewrite the division problem into its multiplication form. So now we're going to keep the first number, never mess with the first number, change it to multiplication, and we're going to multiply by its what? Reciprocal. So 3/5 is the reciprocal of 5/3. And now we just multiply our fractions. 3 times 3 is 9. And 2 times 5 is 10. So 1 and 1/2 divided by 1 and 2/3 is 9/10. Now it's your turn to try. Pause the video. Remember, you're going to have to do an extra step of making the improper fractions, then rewrite it as a multiplication problem, and then solve it. Go ahead and do that. Let's check your work. See how you did. So rewriting is improper, 1 and 1/3, multiply. So this one's going to be thirds, this one will be fifths, keep the denominator. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, so 1 and 1/3 is 4/3. And then 1 and 2/5, so 5 times 1 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. So 1 and 2/5 is 7/5. Keep it division. Hopefully you did that. Now let's rewrite it. Keep the first number the same. We multiply by its what? Reciprocal, which is just switch the numerator and denominator. Becomes 5/7. And now we just multiply. 4 times 5 is 20. And 3 times 7 is 21. So 1 and 1/3 divided by 1 and 2/5 is equal to 20/21. So in today's lesson, you learned how to divide fractions using the algorithm. Great job today. Make sure you have all your notes complete. If you need to go back and rewatch anything to make sure you really understand it, please do so. Otherwise, keep your notes in your binder and I'll see you in class. Bye-bye.